Hello, everyone, and welcome to our great 80s movie debate. And today we are going to be having a fun game show format where we have two guests from different areas of the world debating whether a movie should be watched again by future generations or whether it just needs to go into the trash pile. And so it's going to be a fun debate. There's not going to be any personal attacks. It's going to be super fun and lighthearted. So for our first movie today, we will be talking about Highlander with our guest who's here in the studio with me, Matt from Reklaimer's Vintage Toys. How you doing, Matt?
I'm good, Melinda. How are you?
I'm just so fantastic. So fantastic.
Very happy to be here.
Really enjoying the convention so far?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Some really great content so far.
Yeah.
And especially the stuff I've been in.
Yeah, that's right. And you're going to be in a toy auction soon. It's like, I think tomorrow.
Yes.
And so that's going to be super fun. So be sure you check that out. It's going to be over on Facebook. So that'll be one of the few things that's not here on YouTube. So very fun stuff. Also joining, so you will be arguing against the movie Highlander.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so not a fan. On the other side of the table, we've got Dante from the Infinity Equation podcast. Hi, Dante.
Hi, guys. Thank you for having me on here. This is great. This is awesome. Yeah.
Well, so we've got the first 30 minutes of our 90-minute panel. We are going to be delving into the pros and cons of Highlander. And we're going to just start off by Dante. Can you tell us the first time you saw Highlander and a little bit about what your reaction was to the film?
Wow. I want to say it was about 10 years ago. I first watched Highlander by myself. Because a friend of mine kept talking about it. He was like, it's a great movie. It's so good. He's like, it's Christopher Lambert in it. How can you not like Christopher Lambert? I'm like, well, I do like Christopher Lambert from Mortal Kombat, so I can dig him. And then I finally sat down and watched it, and that made me go buy the Blu-ray. I think I got the director's cut. That's the one I got from Amazon, and I still enjoy it. Still could sit down, good time, enjoy it. If I had kids, I'd be like, kids, guess what? We're going to sit here and have a learning lesson of Highlander and Christopher Lambert's great acting skills. And Clancy Brown. Can't forget the Clancy Browns.
Your audio is out, Dante.
Oh, my audio's out?
Oh, now it's back. Sorry, maybe it was me.
There you are.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, no, that was it. If I had kids, like I said, they'd be sitting down, be watching Highlander, get some good old-fashioned Christopher Lambert. Clancy Brown. Some, I guess, well-matured Sean Connery at that point, because he's not doing James Bond anymore. He's like, at this point, I'll just select my roles at this point.
Yeah, it's weird because it feels like Sean Connery was young enough that he could have still been doing some other stuff. He was in great shape, but that's when he started getting cast as sort of the older, seasoned, wise old man kind of thing.
The mentor type.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. So what about you, Matt? When was the first time you saw Highlander, and have you always felt the same about it, or has it changed and developed over time?
I first saw Highlander when it came out on VHS. It wasn't something I rented. It was my mother's boyfriend at the time rented it because he was a movie file, so he was just into anything. And he rented it, and I was like, I didn't know what a Highlander was. I didn't understand the term, and but I remember having on the VHS box cover it was Lambert with a sword, and I was like, oh, okay, so it's guys that fight with swords. All right, I'm in. And I remember watching it, and I liked it as a kid. I liked it through most of my adult life. So I'm an interesting person to debate this because in the past couple years, I've really put a set of eyeballs on this movie, and it's just the bad outweighs the good for me. So that's why I'm skewing that way. There's so many things that don't make sense about it, and I'm very story driven when I watch a movie as well as visual. So if it doesn't add up for me, I have no problem revisiting something and then saying like, wait a minute, let me reconsider this. So that's where I'm at today.
Okay. All right. Well, so I think that the best way to sort of start going through this is for Dante. I'll start with you. What are some of your favorite parts of the movie? What are the parts that you just absolutely think are like the strong parts that when you think of this movie, that's what you think of, and you're like, God, that's amazing. I love that scene, or I love that part.
Well, I ain't no big city lawyer here. But the training montage, just like the kind of interaction I felt between Sean Connery, just indulge me on this one. Is it Christopher Lambert or is it Christopher Lambert?
That's Lambert. He's
Sorry.
French, yeah.
Lambert. Okay.
Not in this movie. He's not.
If you couldn't tell from his accent, he is very French.
I don't know, because he was like, well, you know. Christopher Lambert, between the interaction between him and Sean Connery, like when they go back and take a look at the training montage, it's like the interaction that they're building. You know, he's like, I'm training you for something that's going to happen in the future. It's not going to be now, but it's going to be soon. Mm-hmm. And to see him live through certain lives during that time was a nice little interaction of flashback. Because it's almost like when you compare it to, was it? I can't remember which Wolverine movie it was. Was it the Wolverine? No, it wasn't Wolverine. It was maybe Wolverine 2. I can't remember which one.
Oh, that's a hard question for me to answer.
But one of the Wolverines, they had like where they show Logan going through time with Sabretooth.
Uh-huh.
That's Wolverine Origins. Yeah, that's the first one. It's during the credits. Yep.
Mm-hmm. That it kind of gives me that reminiscent idea of him. Like, oh man, like seeing him, like they kind of flip back and forth, but it's just the way they do it. When he's like looking at the fish tank, and it goes in, and then it comes up like it's coming out of the water, and it's like you see him on the water. He's talking to Sean Connery. He's like, I don't like water. He's like, I can't swim. I can't do this. He's like, you do a lot of complaining. But it's just those cuts when they go back to like when he's first starting and where he is now with Sean Connery. It's pretty decent.
Well, to counterpoint that, which is, I guess, the whole counterpoint.
That should be what we call this, is counterpoint the panel.
The training with when he meets Ramirez, and he explains to him, you're a Highlander, you can't die. That's the mentor part of the movie, and then he teaches him how to use his sword in more than just a hacking way. And
so he teaches him not to be a hack?
No, he does not.
Oh, okay.
I'll get to that though.
Okay. Sorry, didn't mean to jump the gun there.
Yeah, the training where they're like on the mountain and everything. My problem with that from a story standpoint, and again, that's my biggest beef with this movie, is he establishes that they all have to compete for this prize. They all have to kill each other, basically, till there can be only one. So he lives by this edict, yet everything he does counteracts that, where it's like, I'm going to be friends with this guy. We're brothers. How many other guys has he done this with? Why has he picked him to do this? Why did he seek him out? None of that's ever explained. And he even tells him, like, there can be only one. So eventually, either you're going to cut my head off or I'm going to cut your head off. And McLeod even mentions this to him, and it kind of gets glossed over. But that's, from a story element part, that deflates that whole scene for me, because what's the point? Like, what's his angle? What's he trying to accomplish by this? It's like, I'm going to teach you how to fight so that whenever we meet later, you're going to be harder to kill. And from a logic leap, I can't make that jump. But that's where I'm at with that.
Well, so really quickly, and I should have said this at the beginning, but I just want to make it clear. In the description of this video are links to polls, and what we're going to do to decide the winner of today's entire discussion, not just about Highlander, but all the movies we're talking about today. Thank you, April. Is we are going to have you guys out there in internet land decide with your votes who makes the best argument for or against these movies. So whoever gets the most votes is going to win this panel and go on to compete for this amazing trophy that says you're the best around, Iconicon 2021. So I'm just
can I do it real quick? You're the best.
Yes.
Nothing's ever going to keep you down.
That's right. That's right.
And remember, guys, there can be only one.
That's right.
So don't let me be the Kurgan. Just let me go ahead and be Christopher Lambert
That's right. So I have a couple super chats that I'm going to read just for fun here. So Wicked Person says, I've studied sword for a few years. I love most movies with swords, but Highlander doesn't hang together for me on any level. Seems random.
I would agree with that. I think some of the sword fighting, it's flashy and it's fun. It's visually appealing. From a technical standpoint, there's a big problem with a lot of it, especially the Scottish claymore or longsword, broadsword, whatever it's called, versus the katana, the more traditional katana that Ramirez uses. They kind of, no pun intended, they kind of clash. It's not a very even match.
No, it's not.
Very different styles of sword fighting, and the same thing with what the Kurgan uses, as well as the katana.
And I hate to do this. Unfortunately, I agree with you on that because it looks like they had nobody on set that can like teach sword fighting. Like they just found some random Joe Blow and was like, "Hey, do you know about swords?" I guess. All right. Well, the key teach these guys how to sword fight. Honestly, that's the one drawback I have of it is the sword fights. It's like we're just swinging. And I guess if you were like not familiar with swords, that's what you would do. You just kind of swing. You're like, okay, we're both not familiar. But you lived through all these times. You should know somebody who knows how to sword fight. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like, there's somebody you got to know that you met along the way. Even if you made friends with them, you're like, hey, can you know some sword tips? Yeah, man, I got you. Hold on. But
one of the ends is pointy.
Right.
The pointy end.
But it brings you back to the point that was said earlier. So you're making friends, but you know there's a quickening coming. Mm-hmm. Yes, you're making friends because you don't want Kurgan to be the only one that has this power. So yes, you know you're going to. It's like every other movie. They always team up with the guy, that random dude that's like there. He's just like, yeah, I met you a long time ago when we were fighting against each other on opposite sides, but we're friends now. You know, we kind of, hey, it's cool. Until that time comes when we have to fight each other. They're kind of like the mercenaries for hire, but you're just like, all right, come on, I need you right now, but not right now. Nah, it's that dynamic back and forth.
Well, and that you bring up a good point because he later in the movie we meet Castigar, the African. I'm assuming he's African. He's kind of wearing the costume, but and they're friends, and they've obviously been friends. They established that they've been friends for centuries because it's been like, it seems like 100 years. It has been 100 years. But again, so it's like, McLeod likes making friends with, his eventual his eventual adversaries. It's like running a foot race to me and letting 2 or 3 guys get ahead of you. And it's like, it's okay. We'll meet at the finish line. Mm-hmm. And that just, I can't wrap my head around it at this point. But and I get that, I feel like when Ramirez meets him, he's like, well, who's the best? Well, the Kurgan is the strongest, but he's also evil and psycho. So we got to make sure he doesn't win. So it's almost like you said, like, let's team up and let's, for the greater good, let's stop that from happening. And then we'll figure it all out.
It seems like that would be a whole strategy where you would like try to learn people's weaknesses while pretending to be their friends.
I feel like that's what Ramirez was doing.
Yeah,
where he's like, well, I'm going to teach you how to fight, and because I'm not very good at it, and I can't beat the Kurgan.
But you think about it, we don't know how many, and the thing is, we don't know how many were left either.
Right.
At that point. So it could have been a lot more that Kurgan was like, because towards the end of the movie, you see like all these, like when Connor McLeod kills the Kurgan, you see all these like things that all the people that he's killed just coming out. You see like samurais, everybody like out the gate. And it's like, wow, this dude's really been on a killing spree. And now
I love that. I love that scene. I wish they had kind of projected it more because it's very subtle. And unless you're really watching, you don't catch all that. But it's like they give you that history kind of visually. And yeah, I agree. I feel like with them saying, with Ramirez telling McLeod, "I've been alive for 2,500 years," he survived that long. But how many other Highlanders or immortals has he killed? Because when you kill one, you get the quickening. You absorb their powers and abilities, and their I'm pretty sure that's right. And that's why the Kurgan is so strong, is because he's killed so many other immortals. So it's almost like that's why Ramirez isn't a good fighter. And so this is almost like his strategy. He's like, I'm going to be friends with everyone.
Well, you can see
stay alive.
He kind of wasn't one like he wasn't. I think he was one like that wasn't for like fighting. Like he's not out there. He's like, going how to look for another Highlander so I can go ahead and kill him. He's like, nah. I was like, mm-mm. But what kills me too is if you're going to be, and I love this about Sean Connery. Don't get me wrong about Sean Connery. If you're going to be the mentor and you're immortal, you could have dyed your hair.
Well, that's another logic problem I have with this movie. If they're immortal, I mean, granted, he's 2,500 years old. They obviously age. Are they immortal from birth?
That's
Do they go
my
through
question.
a puberty of sorts where it's like, oh, okay, you got killed, now you're immortal?
Is their immortality genetically set to like kick off and switch over at a certain age, and you don't get to decide whether it happens when you're 17 or 37?
Well, and if they're born at different times, at one point there is only one of them, or it could be only one of them.
Well, and more could be born.
Right? Are they continuously being born?
Well, no.
How do you stop that?
So remember, he said you can't have kids.
Right.
Well,
no,
right,
I mean, but other immortals,
they
like
were,
say, some kid in New Jersey in 1982. Is he?
I feel
born
like you're
and
not
immortal?
supposed to think about all of this all that much.
You're not until you watch the Highlander show, which makes it a whole different story.
Well, that's a whole different thing. Real quick, I got a super chat from Jody, who says, "Here we are, born to be kings. We're the princes of the universe. Here we belong, fighting to survive in a world with the darkest powers." The soundtrack for this show is actually
very good.
Really good. And much like many other films of the 80s, the soundtrack really helps carry the movie and make it super memorable. What do you guys think about the Queen soundtrack?
I 100% agree. That's part of the glue that made that movie work for me for so long, is the visuals and the flash and the style of the movie and the music. But I feel like once you strip those two things away, all the problems start unfurling.
It's
The
not
Queen
really,
is great.
well, okay. So we gotta keep this in mind. It's a canon film, so you know it's not gonna be I think it's probably the most that they put into a film. They were like, "Hey, why don't we go ahead and put some money into this one?" All right, and then we got some budding stars out of it as well too. Clancy Brown. Like, how much did they pay Sean Connery to come in there? Like, we're talking films. They weren't
Most of the budget, it seems like.
That is the budget. Yo, I want to get Sean Connery for this.
Well, keep in mind though, this wasn't prime era Sean Connery. This was Sean Connery after he'd fallen out of favor a bit. He stopped being Bond. He kind of floundered and did a bunch of weird stuff in the early 80s, late 70s. And before this was a year before he won the Oscar for The Untouchables. So he wasn't back into A-list yet. So they probably got him relatively affordable. I do know.
If it was canon, you know that was half the budget right there. If you want to say affordable, that was half the budget right there.
It was expensive for a canon film. It was $19 million. This movie cost more than Aliens.
Chris Johnston says, "Matt, when did you lose your joy? There can be only one. Don't let me down, Dante. Queen is the greatest band. I will fight you."
Why can't you enjoy my joy, man?
Right.
Hey, I love Queen. I absolutely love Queen. As I said a few minutes ago, they are one of the best parts of this movie. The use of their music in it. A lot of people think they did the score. It was Michael Kamen, but the use of Queen's music in this movie, and I believe they wrote "Who Wants to Live Forever" for this movie, which love that song. Oh yeah. And the use of that, the different songs like that, "Hammer to Fall," "Princes of the Universe," everything. It's a textbook, kind of a playbook for how to use existing music in a movie and make it make sense.
I really think, I know my opinion doesn't count in this discussion, but I just got to say, Christopher Lambert looks great in this movie. Like, he's super cute.
Like, yo, this guy's doing his best. He's like, got the slick back hair. Like, you come out of like fighting somebody in a garage. So let's start with that. So he's at a wrestling match. My man's at a wrestling match, and he's having a concentration. Like, I know somebody's here. I feel him in the quickening. Like, you got a guy howling in your ear, like, yeah, tear him apart. You got the fabulous Freebirds doing that. Like, oh, yeah, like, yeah, he's shaking it. And you got all that going on. And you're focused. That's better than any Jedi has ever done in his lifetime. You're focused at a wrestling match, people screaming at you. And you're like, I got to get out of here. I know where this guy's at.
I feel like Buffy actually ripped that off in the first episode of her show, or somewhere in the first season anyway, where Giles is like telling her, focus in this den and in this room at this club and find the vampire, and she's like trying to hone in on it. It's just like that, Dante.
But the best part is the lack of security that they had back then.
That's always great when there's a lack of security.
When you can carry a full-on samurai sword into a wrestling match and go in the parking lot like, oh, we're going to get it on. Shh.
Well,
first off, you got the best trench coat maker.
Right. It's pre 9/11 for sure.
Yeah, that was definitely pre 9/11 world.
But hold on, you got the best trench coat maker ever.
True.
If he can make a sword holster for you, like, so what are you looking for today? I'm looking for like the Inspector Gadget trench coat, but I need to hold a sword. Don't worry, I got you. You pull that out. You're like, oh yeah, we get ready to get on. My man pulled out what was it? What kind of sword? I forget what this name is. Kind of sword he had. He pulls this nice luxurious sword out. I'm like, oh, we're gonna get this is a fight. We see different ages, like because you can see like the ages of like the different swords. Now we know Christopher Lambert. I'm gonna say it like the H time. Lambert. So Sean Connery's sword, but this man had a nice little, looks like I want to say more, was it 18th century sword?
When she finds it, she calls it something Italian. It's like a Tangfoglio or something. It's a something very romantic sounding, and the guy's like, "Oh, what's it worth?" And she's like, "Oh, only about $1 million." Right. But it's like a pirate style, like a I don't even know.
Rapier style?
Rapier.
Yeah, it had it had the handguard on it. And everything.
To that point, really quickly, Wicked Person says, I didn't just mean the swords. French, Scottish guy, and Scottish Hispanic guy saying and doing stuff, random stuff with random swords, yelling just cuz. So, yeah, there's a lot of.
That's a good way to segue into the casting of a French guy as a Scottish guy and a Scottish guy as a Egyptian Spanish guy.
It's multicultural.
Right. Indeed.
I don't know if it's problematic, but it's interesting.
They make sure to check off the boxes. They're like,
we want this to appeal to everyone.
Right.
Jody says, thoughts on the Highlanders build a sword, Kurgan's sword.
That's awesome. I love that.
Again,
let me guess, you don't like it.
Well, and again, this is it's a debate, so it's point counterpoint.
Absolutely.
I think it looks cool.
Okay.
But again, logically, I don't know of any sword that would click together at the blade being very effective against any other sword. The click out on the Tang or whatever, where he hits the button and clicks it out, that looks neat. Not sure how usable that is. It's also the same sword he had when he killed MacLeod in 1548 or whenever it was. So did he have it modified? Was it always that way? These are the questions
I have. It's a kit sword.
Right.
It's a neat looking sword, I'll give you that. But
my man's lived a lot of lifetimes. Okay? He was like, yo, I need this to be a little bit more manageable. I can't be carrying this around the streets. And the guy who he modified it. He's like, here you go. I made it in a suitcase. He probably killed the guy with the sword. And it's like, you're not going to tell anybody else about this anymore. And packed it up real nice and tight and just walked out like, I'm telling you. Look, Kurgan was on point. He knew what he was doing because when he rolled up with the fight, when the MacLeod clan was sitting up there ready, like, he's like, why nobody wanted to fight me? He's like, yo, MacLeod's mine, boy. He already knew that quickening was happening. He's like, oh man, get ready to add another one.
He wanted that sweet McLeod quickening.
Right. He was going to get the most uneducated swordsman out there, but he was like, I want that quickening. He's like, I don't care anything about you. I just want the quickening.
Well, and you would think that if he wanted McLeod, distinctly that bad, that McLeod would have had other immortals that he had absorbed so that it would make the Kurgan more powerful. Again, logically, if I was writing this, that's how I would have had it. But, at that point, McLeod wasn't immortal, didn't realize he was, whatever the case may be. But yeah, I will give you that too. Clancy Brown is one of my favorite character actors. I feel like I wish he would have had more to do as the Kurgan other than just be big and scary.
Oh, yeah, he did. Did you? Okay, sir. We're going to let me get my good seat.
Because he takes it to a level of camp with his psycho, bad guy, blah 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 blah.
That's what I like about it. Because I'm trying to think of the other film. My mind's drawing a blank. But there was a film with the guy from trying to think of his name. What was that crazy show? He was a detective, but it was like trying to solve the murder of the young girl. And he went to that red room. The guy was speaking backwards.
Twin Peaks?
Yes, Twin Peaks. Okay, so I forget the gentleman's name. Great actor. He was in a movie I want to say maybe early 80s, where there was an alien taking over people, and he was just going around killing people just for the fun of it.
That sounds like an 80s movie.
It is. I forget the name of it, but Kurgan act just like that, and that's what I was fine with. He was like still crazy, but he still had, he's like, whatever. I'll still kick your butt around here.
Well, I don't know if you guys realize it's been almost 30 minutes of discussion. So I'd like to get your final thoughts. So now would be the time. Matt, would you like to go first? Give your final thoughts on why folks should vote for you. And then please, everybody, vote for the person that you think made the best argument.
I think it all comes down to whether or not I recommend this movie. It comes down to what kind of movie watcher are you? Do you want to see style? Do you want to see flash? Is watching a movie to you just watching the things happening on the screen? Or are you story driven? Does the story matter? Does the acting matter? Does the casting matter? Does everything, all the dots connecting makes and having to make sense, is that important to you? Because that's why I reverse myself on whether or not I like that movie. Is it flashy? Are there things I like? Absolutely. Would I randomly recommend this movie to somebody else at this point? No, because I feel it's a reflection on how I watch movies, saying, oh yeah, you got to watch Highlander because it's flashy. I can't do that. But so that being said, I'm not a fan.
Dante?
Ladies and gentlemen and jury, Highlander is what you need. You have to keep it preserved in the minds as a great movie, because we got trash after that. We had Highlander 2, which made no sense. We had Highlander show, that makes no sense. And we had Highlander the cartoon, that made no sense. Highlander 1 is our treasure. We have to keep it shining up in movie history. We have to keep it going. We have to pass it down.
Please vote for your favorite person in the description of this video right now. The voting will end in the next several seconds, so make sure you click it real quick.
Vote now. You can make a difference.
And we will tally that up. And while I'm tallying that up, Dante, please tell the audience where they can find you.
Yes, you can find me every Friday night on the Infinity Equations with my co-hosts Bobby Bala, Laser Pants Ryan, and Alex, the sexiest man, boy toy ever, Sanchez. Yes, that's my boy.
And Matt, where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram under Reklaimer's Vintage Toys.
Spelled ReKlaimer's Vintage Toys.
That's right.
Thank you guys so much.
That sounds like a Mickey Mouse.
The winner of this round with 18 votes is Dante. And
congratulations.
Matt got 14 votes. I can't speak today.
Hey, that's pretty close.
So it was pretty close. So great job, all panelists. And we are now going to move on to our next set of contestants. So thank you, Dante. And thank you, Matt. Next up, we have the wonderful, amazing Sal from 2 Cents Toys.
Oh, shucks.
How you doing today?
I'm doing extremely well.
That's great. And can you tell the audience where they can find you?
They can find me right here, right now. And if that doesn't work for them, then they can find me over on my channel, 2 Cents Toys. This is the icon for it. There you go.
Nice. Thank you. And this is the amazing Tim Witten, who is part of our RetroBlasting crew.
Hello, hello.
Hello. How's it going?
Good. Sal,
Tim.
how are you?
It's about to get real, you guys.
I'm doing a lot better now that you're here.
All right. So right now, really quick, I'm going to read a super chat or two. We got Prime Syndicate saying, just saying a massive thanks for Iconicon, the best way to spend lockdown in Sydney. Thank you so much for joining us today, Prime Syndicate. And just double checking, making sure I haven't missed any other super chats. Okay, we're good. And next up, we have for our debate this time, Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home.
Absolutely.
So
it's a great movie.
I don't know if any of you guys know this, but Tim is a super fan.
I am.
Of Star Trek 4. And so I sort of pushed him in the direction of being in this panel because I thought it would be really fun because the man can literally quote the entire movie.
I think I can. Line for line, I could do a line for line reenactment.
He really...
I don't know that it would look good, but I mean, I could do it.
Can you do it with interpretive dance?
Only if Michael was behind me.
I see. And Sal, so let's go through. Let me actually start with you, Tim. When did you first see this movie, and what do you love about it?
So I actually did not see this movie in the theater. I missed it in the theater. It wasn't until, I believe it was 89, that I saw it on a video cassette, VHS, from my video shack in Alabama. And watched it at home and fell in love with it and probably watched it about 14 times as a child between the 2 days I had that video. So It just stayed. It just repeated.
So what do you love the most about it? Or can you not pick?
There's so much about it. I think it was extremely entertaining. Before the 90s, Star Trek was very episode of the week, especially before Next Generation, the original series. And the original series was kind of a no holds barred show. They did some really crazy things in there, and then time travel was something they always did. And here they are going back to our time, going to San Francisco and going for something that was very popular at the time, which is saving the whales. Back then, I mean, I don't know that this generation now knows how close we were to losing humpback whales. We were very, very close to losing a very intelligent species of animal on this planet, by our own hand. So it was really impactful and a lot of fun. And I love the fact that you've got an alien species that is sending this obviously very incredibly powerful ship that is coming to Earth. And we Spock said it best. It's only human arrogance that assumes that the message must be meant for man, and that this species was like, men were ants, humans were ants. They came to find out what happened to their friends. So the premise was awesome. So,
and Sal, tell us about the first time you saw this movie and what your thoughts were.
Well, technically, the first time I saw this movie was about a week ago, but as it turns out, I've been watching paint dry my whole life anyway. So,
man,
no,
it's going to be a long 30 minutes, you guys.
No, it's all in good fun.
I know.
No, so full disclaimer, I am not what you would call a Trekker. I have never seen until recently any of those movies all the way through. So I had no frame of reference for anything that was going on in this movie.
That had to make it fun.
I was Donnie. I was completely out of my element. And it was something. It was something. I know enough about Trek to sound like an idiot, like the Prime Directive and all that. And I was like, this seems like a big violation of the Prime Directive to go back in time and just pull people out of time and then steal 2 whales. And
well, you have to also understand though that the Prime Directive wasn't as big a deal until Next Generation. So putting that into the original movies is kind of because if you actually go back to the original series, there was an episode of where they travel back in time, and it starts with Captain's Log, blah, blah, blah. We've traveled back in time to witness one of the most important events in human history. So even in the original series, they're trying to set it up as, oh, we just time travel whenever we want to and do it to watch things. So it's a little slippery.
It's Doctor Who.
It's very Doctor. It's a little slippery slope there, right? That's kind of the thing.
Now, the one caveat I do have, it was nice seeing Nichelle Nichols in her youth. I met her a couple of years ago.
Yes.
Very kind woman. But I didn't enjoy watching Shatner in his early past his prime.
Just past his prime.
Just past his prime. Yeah, it was kind of like, hi, I'm in the past. I'm going to mac on someone who could potentially be my ancestor because he doesn't know.
But that's Kirk. Kirk is just, he oozes.
He's his own grandpappy.
There's other shows that's done it.
Terminator.
So
it would have been better if it was.
Well, if you remember, though, he was only macking on her to get information. It wasn't necessarily.
Right.
He had to find out about. He has to find out about the whales. The world was going to end otherwise.
That's how I passed high school.
Yeah, hey, we all had to do our thing. So.
Scott Knudsen says, double dumbass on you remains a go-to insult for me. I assume that is from...
It is. As he's crossing the street and they have no idea what that means.
Jody says, so are the whales in Star Trek 4 like the dolphins in Hitchhiker, so long and thanks for all the fish?
Well, as it turns out, whales only eat shrimp and krill. They don't eat fish.
Okay.
They do that by taking a bunch of water into their mouth and using their tongues and forcing water through, I think it's called their brill or their brine.
Yes.
It's kind of these thick whiskers they have in their mouth, and then they swallow the shrimp and krill.
Like a filter.
I know this because I come from a long line of whalers.
Oh! Jay loves the sea.
What a twist of turn of events.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons I love it so much, too, is when I was younger, I was on the path to be a marine biologist. I didn't successfully get to do it. I love what I do now, thank goodness, but I was always fascinated with the ocean. I was always fascinated with dolphins and whales and their level of intelligence. And just, if you've ever been around one, and I've been around just one in my lifetime. And when you look at them, you really are seeing something with a level of personality, with self-awareness, with empathy, with all of that. So it was nice to see us actually trying to save something instead of kill it.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big thing. Because it's true. We slaughtered these animals. Mm-hmm. We still do. If I could be on one of those ships out in the ocean ramming the whalers, I would do it. Trust me, for a vacation.
So you and Sal's ancestry could also be at war in that way.
That probably. So
probably. To be fair, we haven't done that in a couple centuries.
True,
exactly.
Yeah,
right.
Of course.
We mean the royal we, the global we.
Wicked Person says, OG Star Trek, the crew reckons with the sins of mankind's past, and a crew member suffers a personal crisis. New Trek, nuke OG Trek, nuke it.
Well, and what's interesting, too, and I think one of the disadvantages here is really starting with Star Trek 2. From Star Trek 2, I would say, through really right before Generations happens, this is the first time you're seeing Trek kind of have a story arc. Yes, each of these movies kind of has its own plot. It has its own set of circumstances, but there is this overarching plot of you're seeing this crew age out finally. You're seeing Kirk and McCoy and all of them go, hey, we really are getting to the end of our careers. What does that mean? How do we handle it? What do we do? Because if you look at the way Kirk was in the original series, and he was very much Mr. Starfleet, Mr. Regulation, there was some episodes where he was a rebel and went against orders, but still he was very much about his career and about holding up the values of Starfleet. But by the time you get to Wrath of Khan and Search for Spock, and especially Voyage Home, he basically says, damn it all, I'm gonna be there for my friends, and I'm gonna sacrifice everything for my best friend. And that means a lot to me. I think I'm a very loyal person, and my friends mean everything to me, Sal, you included, so don't take it as an insult. But
I know you're speaking English right now, but I'm going to need you to take that and explain it to me like I'm 5.
It's when, in Wrath of Khan, Spock sacrifices himself to save everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time we get to 4 is a direct product of Kirk saying, forget everything, I'm going to go save Spock, which was the 3rd movie, and the 4th movie
That's
starts.
Why it's called that. Okay.
Yeah, and
just look at the bridge. He's probably right there.
And by this 4th movie, we've got Spock back, but you see Spock having to be re-educated and retaught and recover his memories, and Spock, Jim, Spock. He's trying to tell him it would not be appropriate to call you by your first name while on duty. So it's this larger arc of them aging up, moving on, evolving as people, and really doing the right thing. I think that's what it kind of comes down to. It really does culminate in 4, but it's really about doing the right thing regardless of what has to be done. Self-sacrifice, giving up whatever you need to give up for your friends, your family, and everything else. So.
And humanity or life in the universe.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would like to address the lady who just skips forward a couple centuries and is just like, yeah, I'm part of the ship now. And I'm like, that'd be like me handing my MacBook to a person from the Victorian England, be like, yeah, figure it out. Here you go. Enjoy. Yeah, I know you know how to like make a steam engine, but I need you to set up this PowerPoint for me.
Right, but if you remember, she said, who in the 25th or 24th, 23rd, 24th century knows anything about whales?
A computer does.
Does
that information's logged somewhere.
Does
it's
it? This was
ancient tome that's undecipherable.
No, but they didn't know the language. That was the thing. By that time, the whales were extinct, so they had never had the opportunity to study a whale. They had never seen one other than a picture, so there was no indication that made anybody do any kind of study to prove that they actually had a level of intelligence where they had made alien contact. So again, it comes down to our own hubris, our own arrogance as a species, not considering that, there's actually something else around us that's might be just as smart as us.
I'm with you, Tim, but I'm going to counterpoint by saying dinosaurs. That there's a much larger gap between us and dinosaurs, and we know kind of not a whole lot, but more than we probably should. And we extrapolate a lot of data from bones.
I will counterpoint that actually and say that if you look though, and paleontology is another passion of mine. Actually, I do collect dinosaur bones. If you look at one of the biggest publications in the late 90s called The Kings of Creation, it was a huge book. It was considered the gold standard for paleontology at that time. That was barely 20 years ago. And back then, we actually didn't think dinosaurs had feathers or had colors or anything. So, to your point, yeah, we may, if you look at that, we thought we knew everything at that point, right? We thought we knew a lot. But yet, here we are 20 years later, and we're like, holy crap, we got it all wrong. We were completely wrong. So I would say it's possible in this movie that it was the same thing. They thought they knew what whales were and what they did.
I disagree. because the information we have about dinosaurs, we've extrapolated. Whales exist in recorded history.
Right.
So, I mean, unless they just blinked off the planet in like blip style or something, there's information about them. I'm not saying that they would have, the greatest hits of whale songs on a CD somewhere, and they'd be like, oh yeah, I know what that sounds like. That's a whale right there.
Have you seen the movie Legend? There's lots of whale song in that.
Yeah, true.
Unicorns apparently make whale songs.
A lot of well, we do have all those posters from the late '80s of whales in space, so I'll give you that point. I'll give you that.
Thank
point.
you, Bradshaw Studio. Live long and prosper to you as well.
And I feel, Tim, and I'm with you on this part. I feel that I have a slight connection to this movie, and I feel like you might have it too because of the space whales and rebels.
Oh yeah.
I couldn't get it out of my head. I was like, they don't have tentacles.
Yeah, that's true. It was very odd, though. Whales that can travel in hyperspace.
That's right.
That
crash through the bridge of the Chimera, but they're going to look for Ezra, even though he was on the bridge of the Chimera, or went through hyperspace with broken windows. But whatever.
Yeah, whatever. It's a da.
Let the art flow over me. I get it.
But another thing I liked about this movie is this is also the first movie that you see in Star Trek where it is. The ship is not a character. In every Star Trek movie, the Enterprise is its own character. And suddenly we have an entire movie where the Enterprise doesn't exist. And not only that, they're in, this is the first time they really focused on the Klingon bird of prey.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at 3, it was completely out of scale. It was a brand new concept of ship, but everybody was like, oh, hey, we kind of got something here. This is neat. We need to kind of rework that for 4. But again, everybody loved the Enterprise, and most Trek fans, I would argue, are more. I'm not I don't like to call myself an engineer. I'm more of a computer geek, but I do like understanding technology and how technology works. And to me, Trek does the best job of that of any sci-fi genre. But this time it was really interesting because, again, that ship was always a character. So now you had to focus on something other than the ship. Mm-hmm. So it was interesting to see that as well and see that it was just as popular, in that regard. So
would you consider it the Rogue One of the Star Trek movies?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We've had a Millennium Falcon or similar in most of them.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. That's exactly what I would consider that, But Rogue One has its own set of problems.
So what do you guys think the reaction of the fan base was when this film came out? Like,
it was, I remember it being really strong.
I mean, I saw it in the theater, so, but I wasn't a Trek person. I just saw it, and I liked it, but
yeah. And Sal, I apologize. I don't know your age, so I don't know where you were.
I think when did the movie come out?
86.
Wasn't even a twinkle in my dad's eye yet.
Okay. See, I was already in 6th grade. I was already preteen, 12-year-old, 13-year-old, loving sci-fi, kind of kids. So I remember, I think the one thing I remember the most from all the promotions was, I believe it was Taco Bell that had the Star Trek 4 glasses. And I had 2 of them, and they broke over the years. I have to get them back. I need to get them back. So
now that you've said it, the P.O. box is going to get hit with like a dozen of them.
I don't know how many of those are even out there. I think Michael might have a couple of them, but he's got 3. He's holding up 3 fingers. So. Oh, Star Trek 3. He's got the
Star Trek 3.
He has the Star Trek 3 glasses, not the Star Trek 4. But I do remember the Star Trek 4 glasses.
I'm not sure how Michael feels about Star Trek 4, but Wolfie says, do we get USS Flag, CVN, the 65 Enterprise, and the new Enterprise A in this film? Or we do get that in this film?
Yeah.
Agreed, they are not really characters. Great debate, guys.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. That was also really interesting when Chekhov does get to sit back and go, and Admiral, it is the Enterprise. And he's like, understood, carry on. So that was really interesting. I like that chase scene. The only thing I will say, and I'm going to give you this out, one of the holes that has always bothered me about Star Trek 4 is the fact that they have his phaser, they have his communicator,
mm-hmm.
The FBI clearly has it, and it doesn't work because of the radiation. I think they probably would have figured that out. And not only that, but he throws it at him when he runs away. So Chekhov has now ran away, is in the hospital, and the government has his phaser and his communicator. That is that's a big plot hole. I will give you that.
Yeah, that was something.
So,
Laser Pants actually makes a good point. He says, couldn't they replicate a whale in the future, or at least its DNA, and then clone it? I mean, I don't know how much we knew about that technology in the 80s when this movie came out, but I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
I mean, they pretty much Xeroxed a Spock in the last movie, if I'm not mistaken. So,
well, no, not necessarily, but it was the Genesis web that recreated Spock, and it actually just regenerated him. It didn't Xerox him. But what's interesting, and Sal, you're making a great point, is if we go back to 1985, computers were still very, very new. 85, 86. I had a Trash 80. I couldn't afford a floppy drive. So everything I did on a computer, if I spent all day writing a program, I better enjoy it, because the minute I turn it off, it's all gone. It's just the way computers work. So, the fact that we're talking about access to information and stuff, we had no concept of the internet. Wasn't even a concept when the story was written or the movie was created. So thinking that we would have kind of this database from the time period, I don't think we could write about it, because we had no idea how that was going to be achieved at the time. So that's kind of, I think, one of the reasons why in this film, to your point, it seems a little interesting, from that regard.
Yeah.
So
Scott says, letting them fly the BOP home always drove me crazy about this movie. If a U.S. Navy crew showed up with an intact Soviet submarine in 1985, the military would have been like, just leave that there. We'll buy you a plane ticket.
Right. Although I love that he's like, we've got a Klingon cloaking device that costs us plenty, so it was interesting to have a cloaking device for a change too. So
yeah, true. Was that the first cloaking device?
Oh no. Cloaking devices where you go back to the original series, but
I thought they did, but I just can't.
The plot always is that it was against the Federation Romulan.
Okay.
Accords for Federation to develop cloaking technology, so that was always an advantage the Romulan and the Klingons had. So getting our hands on a stolen one was a big deal, to try to figure out a way around the cloaking device. So
Wilson asked the question, how did they determine which particular species and particular kind of song?
Well, that's go ahead, Sal.
They read the script.
It was plot. That was so my limited working knowledge of Trek is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, as I'm sure you will. In the original series, it was common for them to just kind of, we're on this old Western planet for this episode, because it was what they had available. And that's how I felt watching this whole movie. I was like, so they literally were just like, yeah, we're going to take these cameras downtown off the lot, and that's going to be half of our movie. And I think it's just because they happen to have two whales in San Francisco. Like, yep, that's the breed we're going to use.
Well, and that's actually what's kind of funny. We have never had humpback whales in captivity. That's actually never happened. So I think, to your point, and I think you're absolutely right, it was convenience, because in San Francisco, it's not unusual for humpback whales to show up in the bay. And it'd be very seasonal. So to your point, it's very easy for them just to get in a sightseeing boat, go out and film humpback whales. So it makes perfect sense that became, the species they determined in the series itself. So, but yeah, Los Angeles and all of them, I mean, humpback whales inhabit that whole sea, coastal area. So it just made sense. So, and gray whales would have just been too big. Sperm whales would have been too big for a bird of prey. Humpback whales was also the only ones from a size perspective that would have fit in that ship. So
I did have a problem with how they were beamed on board. I'm not a biologist as you are. I'm not sure how much water they need to be buoyant and not be crushed under their own weight, but I don't feel like there was enough water in that tank for them to survive.
I don't know. That's a great question, and I can't answer that one for you.
That actually is a really great question.
I have no idea. let's hope they were right. That's all I'm going to say.
Let's hope so.
Admiral, there be whales here.
I'm just saying that at the way the crew reacts whenever they like jump into light speed, even though anything in a vessel traveling at a speed also travels at the speed of that vessel. I'd hate to see those whales jostling around in that tank when they're, going that fast.
This is true. They did have dampening fields, though. That was a thing.
All right, so we're 5 minutes away from the end of the panel. Everybody get ready to vote for the person that you think made the best argument for or against Star Trek 4. And now I will turn it over for closing arguments. Sal, I'll let you go first.
So Star Trek 4, which is the one that comes after Star Trek 3. And let me check my notes here. And before Star Trek 5. So, if you are a Trek fan, I'm sure you will love it. If you are not a Trek fan, you should probably watch the first 3, at least. But no, sir, I didn't like it.
Tim,
I can appreciate his point of view. This is like me watching Hercules last night. But no, I think Star Trek 4 is a fantastic movie. It was a turning point, I feel, in the series and the genre. You started to see a lighter side of it, and we got to see something that was a little more lighthearted, but also at the same time, humans were not the bad guys for a change. We actually were heroes trying to save something bigger than ourselves. So, that along with the fact that we also got Spock back. I think all of us at the end of Star Trek 2 and the funeral were just like, you can't lose Spock. So the fact that we finally got him back in 4 and we got him back in a way where he was learning everything again was also very, very funny and very entertaining. And you got to love the end of the movie where they actually look at Kirk and his punishment ends up being, we're going to make you a captain again instead of an admiral and give you command of a starship, which is what he always wanted. And they give him the Constitution renamed the Enterprise. So,
all right. Well, be sure to go in the description of this video and click the link next to Star Trek 4 to vote in the poll section. The poll will last till exactly 3:00 Eastern Time, and I will tally up the results in 3 minutes. In the meantime, Sal, please tell the people where they can find you.
You can find me on all sorts of places throughout Iconicon, which is been a long time coming, and I'm so thankful and happy to be a part of it. And thank you, Melinda, for doing like 99.9% of all the heavy lifting on all this.
I don't know about all that, but
yeah, every 2 weeks during our meetings, I'm just eyes glazing over and brain just smoothing. Like, I don't know how she does all this.
It's the spreadsheets, isn't it?
It is.
Okay.
I think it is. It's the wrap text in the spreadsheets. That's how you get them.
That's right. And Tim, where can they find you?
You can find me right here. No, I mean, no, seriously. No, you can find me on RetroBlasting. Sometimes I run equipment.
Tim.
Sometimes I run equipment. So I'm kind of the gopher. I go for this, go for that, and do some heavy lifting every now and then. Hang some curtains for Melinda. Things like that.
He does all kinds of things, and he's a wonderful friend, and so is Sal. But I don't know if you should vote for either of them for that purpose, but I'm not voting. So just to make that clear. Yes, and Tim is actually now part of our intro, our official.
Yeah, I was so shocked. I missed it yesterday morning because what happens? My battery's dead in my truck when I wake up in the morning.
I mean,
don't ask. It's going to be an interesting after show. The first one
Iconicon. But so
I made it into the opening. Michael actually put me in the opening of the show. He has that much value twice. I'm in there twice. Yes, I know. I'm so honored.
So it looks like for Star Trek 4, Tim won at 52 votes so far.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you.
Winning the panel.
Sal, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Sal. You did a great job.
You did. For somebody who just saw it a week ago, man, top notch.
It was a valiant effort.
I'm just going to say top shelf.
I don't envy you in that position at all. So now it is time for our final movie debate of the panel.
This is going to be a good one. Sal,
later,
take
Sal.
it easy.
Thanks for joining us. Next up, we have Paul from G.I. Joburg. Welcome, Paul. And
Hello, everybody.
he will be taking the I don't know. He's taking a big risk in debating Michael French from RetroBlasting, who is walking over here right now, to debate the movie The Breakfast Club, an 80s classic, an 80s staple. Lots of people love it. Lots of people have fond memories of high school and all that fun stuff.
Hey, Paul.
Hey, Mike.
I love your show. Been listening to it for years. Love you guys, the whole crew on G.I. Joburg. It's awesome to finally get to discuss something with you. I'd like to acknowledge, as a terminally objective YouTube host, that everybody out there today loves everything, apparently. And you also have a killer accent that I do not. So I'm on the back foot on this debate.
Right.
I acknowledge that. And whether I win or lose, I'm just glad that I got to share some space with you for 30 minutes.
Oh, thanks, Michael.
Oh, that's so
And
nice.
likewise, man. Like,
Yeah.
it's great to be in the same space as you. So
I debate the movie, not the man. And I know you do too. So let's do this.
Let's do this. So Paul is going to be arguing for The Breakfast Club. And Paul, tell us a little bit about your first time seeing The Breakfast Club and sort of why you love it so much.
Okay, cool. So in all honesty, I cannot actually remember the first time I watched the movie, but I do remember the second time I watched it because that's when it clicked with me. There was this movie called Not Another Teen Movie, which like rips off. It's a spoof movie about teen movies, and it referenced The Breakfast Club quite a bit, and that started hitting me. And then I decided I actually got to watch The Breakfast Club again, and then I did, and it clicked. And it's been one of those films that's just been like a real sucker punch to me, and I've always appreciated it as somebody who didn't necessarily love my school life either, which is pretty cool. And I would say this happened around was 21 around there when I watched The Breakfast Club. I kind of wish I'd seen it sooner though, to be honest, like properly.
Now I don't know how old you are. Was that in the 80s or was that much later?
I would love to say I was 21 in the 80s. No, that was early 2000s, eh?
Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah. Now, I will not disclose my age, but I'm not 40 yet.
Okay. Got it. So, Michael, what about you? When did you first see the movie and what were your initial thoughts about it?
I originally saw the movie as a kid in the 80s, but it was only like one time. But when I really saw it and got to, observe it and at the right age or over the right age was when I was in film school. And we had a whole class one year on it was a class on comedy and, how comedy had evolved through the decades of cinema. And there was like a time period there where we had to study, we'd come out of the 70s, we're studying the 80s and John Hughes being a big part of the 80s. And so we're sitting there and one of the movies was The Breakfast Club and we had to go and one night for a Cinematheque and watch it, in the big auditorium and everything. And that's when I kind of sat up and I was like, what's everyone's deal with this movie? And everyone around here knows, Tim will tell you, Melinda will tell you that I watch a movie and I just don't watch a movie. I watch a movie like a weirdo. Like I've always watched movies like a weird person. And so like I will see things. It's almost like when I watch a movie, I'm not special, I'm broken. I watch things that everybody is not supposed to watch for. I see things. So I freely admit that my take on this film might be completely wrong. But when I saw this movie, I was going, what? I don't understand the love for this film. I think this film is actually subversive in a way that I don't think it's self-aware enough to figure out. But anyway, I'll be quiet. We'll move on to the next phase before we really dig into it. So,
well, Paul, what do you think about what Michael's saying?
It's interesting because the one thing I can relate to with Mike is that I also watch movies in a very weird way. Stephen often criticizes me for it. I have two styles of watching movies. So one is I watch it and I have to constantly try to stop myself from trying to see all of the narrative behind it. And I'm sorry if that sounds pretentious, but I love like being in pre-production in animation and gaming and stuff like that, I do think about that a lot.
Same.
Right. And then the other way I watch it is when I'm actually working and drawing and doing art and stuff, that I watch a movie like half an eye, which irritates Steven, for example, to no end, because he's like, oh, you only half watch movies. So I kind of watch a movie like this, and then I watch a movie with the ear that sees, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Half of me is watching Indiana Jones punch somebody, while the other half of me is going, that boulder is bouncing down the hill. Like, no one's noticing that, but I'm watching the shadow. I get it. I totally get it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I can get where you're coming from with the sort of subversive element of it, and I can also agree with you on the sense that, the film, it doesn't understand itself. Like, it doesn't know itself enough to really make fun of itself, or to really plant its message properly. And I feel that that's like, because of how John Hughes made it.
Mhm.
He went into the cast and crew, and he was kind of like, oh, you guys do what you guys want to do, and he let them ad-lib a lot of whatever's, and that is like, that's a film that's out of control, and that is very dangerous for a lot of directors to do, unless you have a cast like Bill Murray and Harold Ramis and
Mhm.
the Ghostbusters.
Right.
But so I agree with you in that sense, but I also feel like that's kind of what makes it special, because I feel like every generation that I've spoken to about this movie has enjoyed it for different reasons and can still relate to it. I mean, I've just recently shown this film off to. I've got an assistant that helps me now in the studio, and she's just turned 19. She's a fantastic artist, by the way. And I was like, Ruby, have you ever watched The Breakfast Club? And she's like, no, I haven't. I'm like, no, you've got to watch this movie. And she's like, what's it about? And I sort of have told her about it, and I want her to watch it after this chat, because I want her to feel like shy when she sees this. But when I told her what it's about, she's like, that's really cool. Why haven't they made movies like that for me? And I'm like, they have. You just don't realize it, because The Breakfast Club has made such an impact on popular culture that concept has been inserted in pretty much everything now.
Mhm.
Anything that's been like teen focused, it's been there. And that's why. Anyway, so that's my thoughts. Sorry, went a bit far, and then I started firing shots.
No, so really quickly, Wicked Person asked a good question that I think segues into something it's important for us to discuss. So he says, because of 80s films, modern high school jocks are often disliked and assumed to be bullies right from the gate, stereotyped. It's kind of hilarious. So do you think that this movie even applies anymore, because so many of the cliques and social groups that were very much a part of 80s school life are not really so categorized and compartmentalized with modern kids, or at least that's my understanding. I'm not a kid, I don't have kids, but it seems like the school groups are maybe a little bit more fluid, and they aren't the same groups. So you don't have jocks and preps and like metalheads, and you don't have those types of groups. What do you think about that?
I think, okay, yeah, you're 100% right. Those groups don't exist the way that they do, but a teenager's need for identity and to figure out what they're going through is still like as important today as it was in the 80s. And so a bunch of guys in school today, or at least kids today, as far as I know them, and if I think about my high school life as well, you were trying to figure yourself out, but you just mentioned there's like a lot of fluidity, and that kind of stuff doesn't happen anymore, and there's a lot more understanding that's sort of starting to come through in the world today. Like, kids really understand. How do I put it to you this way? It's kind of bad to not be empathetic towards your fellow students and to not kind of try to relate to them, even though they do something else. I mean, for me, for example, I was a dancer in high school. That's one of the things I did. But I didn't dance in high school. I danced outside of that. And when I was in high school, that would have been completely frowned upon.
Right.
It was kind of like, oh, like only, that type dances, whatever. At least that was my experience. But like now, when I encounter younger generations who are dancing and things like that, they're dancing and they're on the rugby team. And that would have never happened. And I feel like The Breakfast Club was one of those things that try to create an understanding between people. And yes, I do think movies in the 80s definitely demonized a lot of these groups as well. Like, because today the jock is not the jock anymore. But I'd like to think that the Breakfast Club had something to do with that. But anyway,
I like that you talked about how understanding between people, creating understanding between people, because that's where I feel like the subversion of the Breakfast Club comes in. Because people who remember the movie and who talk about the movie from when I was growing up, and even people now who've maybe seen it a few times, and they feel like it's a movie where these kids that don't ever relate in school come together for 5 hours to sit in front of a mud sculpture in a museum or library, and then they become friends. And it's like, well, not really. Like they show up and they get to know one another, and then at the end of the movie, every single one of them is like, Molly Ringwald just says right out loud, she's like, after today, when we get back on Monday, I'm probably not going to talk to any of you. I'm just going back to my normal clique, and I'm just going to pretend like none of this ever happened, and too bad. And then the jock guy, Estevez, he's like, oh, I really like this girl, but I can't be with her unless she changes for me. And so then Molly Ringwald literally transforms her into another Pretty in Pink style popular girl looking character. And really, how long is that going to last? Because can Ali Sheedy as a teenager really change her stripes, and for how long will he really stick with her? And then Molly Ringwald goes off and she decides that she's going to get back at her dad by getting with the bad boy in school, but just during detention. She's not actually going to do that when she gets back on Monday. And if she does, it's going to be a secret relationship that no one's ever going to know about. And he's going to get screwed over again, even though he has a bad family life, because his girlfriend, who really likes him, won't acknowledge his existence in public. And yet, at the end of the movie, the one kid, the nerd, has been crying and he's kicked to the curb, and she's like, yeah, I understand you now and I like you here, but we're not going to talk to you when we get back to school. And then the Judd Nelson guy goes walking out in the last scene. He's like, yeah, like it's this victory. And it's like, no, it's not. You guys just hung out for 8 hours, beat each other up verbally, and then acknowledged, yeah, nothing's changing. Status quo is what it is, unless you change for me. But you got to change in a radical way. And I'm looking at this going, this may be the most backward movie I've seen since The Mirror Has Two Faces with Barbara Streisand. Like, wow.
That's my favorite movie, by the way.
Well, and again, it's about a woman who gets rejected by a guy for how she looks. And then she's like, it's what's on the inside that counts. But let's do a montage where I work out for months and months without him around because I broke up with him. And now I'm super hotness. And he comes back and wants me, and I accept him now. Like what? Like, so The Breakfast Club it's funny. It's got legitimately good jokes. Judd Nelson is great in it. The principal is great. Like Judd Nelson and the principal are some of the, and some of Emilio Estevez's sight gags are really good. His timing in the movie is great. But the actual message of the movie, the progress of the characters, the journey they go through, to me is so empty and depressing. As somebody who, like yourself, had a hard time in school, so that's where I like kind of look at it and go, this situation didn't get better for anybody. Arguably, it only got better for Ali Sheedy, but that's because she flushed her whole personality down the toilet so this guy would actually chum up to her. Like, what? And again, that's my take on it. I could be completely wrong. Yeah, everybody in the chat can hate me. I'm used to it. I don't care.
So, just to paraphrase, you're basically saying in a lot of ways that you feel like The Breakfast Club as a movie is pretty toxic. You feel like the message behind it might be a bit toxic.
Well, if there's a message at all to take from it, the few messages that are there are compartmentalized between characters. So, like with one character is, if you want the guy to like you, you got to become what he wants, like wholesale. He's not going to like you for who you are. The other message is, hey, if you're the geeky guy, you're, no matter what you do for people on a detention day, and they say thanks for all that stuff, they're going to tell you they're not going to hang out with you on Monday. They're not going to talk to you in the cafeteria. Your life ain't getting better. So what was the point of trying to ingratiate yourself to people that literally just smashed your lunch up? It really is, and I don't even think life actually works that way. Like, life is bad. I mean, I was in school, like, there are jerks in school, but there are a lot of people that, more people don't act that way in my experience than do. And this is coming from a kid that went to convent school where everybody was walking around with a hair trigger and messed up. So I don't know. The Breakfast Club is this weird thing where everybody seems to think it's about everybody coming together and understanding one another. And then when understanding is achieved, we're all going to be friends on Monday. And it's like, that's literally not what the movie says. Like, it says the opposite. So,
no, okay. So like, you're very, you're right with that, because when I first let's say when I first really saw the film, that was my takeaway. I was like, oh, wow, these guys are getting together. They're really starting to understand each other. The prep is sort of understanding the jock. The jock is understanding what is he meant to be? Like a stoner?
like a misfit
bad boy.
Yeah.
The misfit kind of character. And then the nerd is, believe it or not, trying to still fit in with these guys. And then these guys understand the nerd's got like these issues. But then watching it more and more with like let's call them adult eyes, you can kind of see that the movie in a lot of ways is kind of a manual of, it's kind of a, shall I say, an ant farm. And you're seeing these characters interact. And like you said, this is not human. And this is not right. And I think it's like, if you're watching this film and you're having the conclusions that you're having, I think you're realizing that you're growing a lot as a person. And that's kind of a good thing about that, because you're kind of going, yeah, like, women shouldn't change for me. I should like somebody for who they are. And if I can't appreciate this girl for who she is, then what right do I have to be with her? And I'm referring to the Allison character in this. And I'm like, yeah, of course, I like the prep girl, and everybody else does, and maybe, but she's also got her issues. Oh wow, she's actually deeper than I thought. Maybe there's other stuff going on there. Like, and another thing as well is, the outcast. He's quite a heroic character in a lot of ways. If you stop to like look at it and go, yeah, a lot of what he's doing is bad. Like, it's really bad. He is an irritating character in the beginning. They're all like flustered by him, but we kind of need people like that in our lives. And if you see that he's shaking them up and he's getting a conversation started and he's getting them to open up, that's also not a bad trait. That's not a bad thing to sort of learn from these characters as well. That you're going to encounter people that are going to get on your nerves. They're going to really break you in some respects. But maybe they just broken themselves, and that's all a cry for help. And I don't know. I just kind of feel that it also teaches you to be a bit more empathetic. I just feel like the Breakfast Club. I'm failing to find the proper words for this, but it's more a case of, it's a study in sometimes how not to be a person, and how not to always, set yourself into like a hole of, I should be a jock,
Right.
Yeah.
Judd Nelson, as I said earlier, is the best character in the film, and there's nothing toxic in his representation, given that it's very accurate. I think that's what it boils down to, is the other characters and the things that are revealed about them. Like you said, we're learning about these characters and they're learning about each other. Like Molly Ringwald saying that, people look up to us, and it's so hard, in my social position to maintain, my front or whatever it is. It's so hard for me to do that. And then, Anthony Michael Hall says, you're so conceited and all that kind of stuff. She's like, no, people look up to us. And he's like, you're so conceited. And he starts crying. And then, Emilio Estevez reveals how his dad just pushes him too hard in the sports department and all that kind of stuff. And he's not really being allowed to live his dream. And I get all that, but it's that stuff is all fine. I mean, like I said, the comic timing is good. The acting is fine. It's where their intelligence, meaning their intel, not their brain intelligence, but what they learn about each other, the intel they get from each other. It doesn't lead them to a place of greater enlightenment for how they're going to treat each other on Monday. And that's where I have the sticking point, because it's like, then what did we go through this whole journey for as an audience? What was
I think it's for the audience to learn that. That's kind of what I was trying to get at earlier. And thank you, because you just actually sparked it in my brain probably. That's for the audience. It's actually like the audience makes that journey. Like these characters leave and you're like, okay, they're still going to be buttholes to each other
Right.
like when they get back to school. But you're like, maybe I don't have to be the butthole. Maybe I am like putting myself in this box and I think I'm better than other people. Maybe actually, you know what? I'm not. This film's reminding me that maybe I'm not. Maybe I actually have more in common with that physics dude that guy that loves physics or that girl that loves physics. Maybe I have more in common with them than I think. And maybe, just maybe, when I see them getting like ripped off in school or somebody giving them hell, maybe I should actually stand up for them.
So are you saying you're saying it's holding up a mirror rather than showing them how to be?
Yes, it's holding up. That's exactly what I'm saying. Okay. And it's also trying to encourage us as people to hold ourselves up to a higher standard in a weird way. And I know that puts a lot of weight on the film.
Sure.
But I do feel that John Hughes has always tried to put that in his films. And that is something that's definitely evident in The Breakfast Club. And also in Some Kind of Wonderful, which in a weird way feels like a more refined concept of that sort of smooshing of social roles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, I do absolutely see what you're saying. I can't refute that posit because that maybe that is John Hughes' intent. I don't think it was Rian Johnson's intent for me to react and go, I wouldn't have thrown that lightsaber over my shoulder. That was my reaction. But I don't think Rian Johnson intended that. Yeah. Right. I mean, and every single thing that happened after that, every 5 minutes, I was like, I wouldn't do that, and I wouldn't do that. Oh, I wouldn't have done that. But maybe John Hughes, he was a smarter filmmaker in a subtler time in some ways, and I give you the possibility that could be the case. Your read on the film is not implausible. So
just even though I don't get to weigh in any real way, I have to say, as the female on this panel, the Ali Sheedy character, I loved her, and I felt like she was my representation on the screen as a sort of grungier, not popular, preppy girl. The fact that she totally traded in her cool card to try to be a preppy girl when those girls are so awful to you, like so awful to you if you're not one of them. I can't buy it, and I don't like it that it's in the film. And even if you're watching the film, regardless of where you are in society, I don't love the message that it's sending, at least for that character. Now, the other characters, whatever, but I'm just going to put that out there. I don't know if you guys want to discuss, but...
No, I feel you on that one, Melinda, like big time, because I was one of the weirdos in my school. And so I can totally relate to her character. And and I get her, because when you're in high school, at least when I was in high school, I was trying to fit in, and like all of us, we're all trying to fit in, and we're all trying to not be as weird as we are. Her character Allison made me realize that actually you should let your freak flag fly, and then when that happens, you do feel betrayed. And I know that when I saw that, I was like, girl, no, why are you doing that? That's not a cool thing to do. And once again, I feel like it is a lesson. Like, maybe you shouldn't let go of what makes you who you are. And it's kind of...
Sorry, go ahead, Paul.
No, I'm just going to say it is kind of sad. That I would say that's one of my biggest criticisms, actually, for the film. Not critiques, criticisms. Yeah. That is a huge negative. And even when I talk to friends about it and whatever, I always go, that's the one thing. Let the weirdos be the weirdos.
Because the way the film presents it, when they reveal that she's changed into this other set of clothes, which, by the way, that pink really clashed with her skin tone. Just gotta say, not exactly the most flattering color for her. But other than that, let's not put that into the rating jury. That was just me, withdrawn, counsel. But that whole sequence is presented with the music and the shooting and the reveal and the composition as a positive. It's presented as, oh, look, they're going to be together now, and he's crushed on her, and she has done the legwork to now be a suitable companion for him. And then with, Bender and Molly Ringwald, it's, oh, she's going to get with the bad boy. And the way that is composed and shot in that sort of utility room, she's doing something illicit. She's doing it to let her freak flag fly. She's doing it to get back at her parents, who she hates, because she knows they disapprove. But she's also not going to compromise her social standing the next morning to be with the bad boy that she's actually attracted to. Because there's even that conflict early on where Emilio Estevez doesn't like how Bender is Judd Nelson is showing his interest in the girl in detention that's from Emilio Estevez's cast in the school. You know, it's like, this is she's part of our group.
One of us.
Yeah, she's one of us, and you need to back off, you know, and all this kind of stuff. She's you're beneath her. She's above you, you know, and all this kind of stuff. And none of that stuff really, to me, I know I sound like a broken record, but it just doesn't seem to change by the end. So then when, you know, you see them write that letter together, and they're like, we're the Breakfast Club, and you can't stop us, and you can't change us, and blah, blah, blah principle. It's like, that feels so hollow based on what you all just said to one another. And then Bender walks out of there, and he's walking across the football field, and he's like, yeah. And I'm like, no. Like, I'm having a hard time. I mean, I see what you're saying about maybe it's holding up a mirror, and that's very valid. It could very well be a cinematic mirror. And if it is, I hope to God it is. I really do. But I'm not sure. So
I think it's quite interesting, and I keep forgetting the nerd character's name, and I'm like, it's bad for the and I hate to actually call him the nerd character.
I just call him Anthony Michael Hall.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the whole thing, he's the one writing the essay. The others didn't write the essay.
Yeah.
They still convinced him to do it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So like, yeah, I get, I get that. But now I don't know, maybe he feels better about it. Like, I would imagine that hopefully he gets in that car, he goes home, and he thinks about it, and he kind of goes, they just all manipulated me into writing this essay.
and they already told me they're not going to talk to me on Monday.
And yeah, exactly. And he's like, I'm not going to be suicidal anymore. I'm just going to start a computer company or something.
Right.
And then rule the world and rub it in their faces or something. But thankfully, we don't see that side of the movie because that's quite vengeful.
That's the follow-up. It's called The Social Network. Came out a few years ago. You might have enjoyed it. So.
All right. Well, I have a couple of super chats I'm going to read really fast, and then I'm going to do your closing arguments, and then we will be tallying up the votes for this section. So everybody go ahead and get ready to vote. In the meantime, I'm going to read these. So Jesus says, just want to say Iconicon is awesome. Thank you for all the awesome content and panels. Jody says, one of the things that attracted me to the movie was the Bender character reminded me a lot of Doug Penhall's 21 Jump Street character when undercover. Back then, that was one of my favorite series. Scott says, I can take Breakfast Club or leave it, but I think Paul Gleason steals every scene of every movie he's in. And I think I've got one more down here, which is Wicked Person says, pump up the volume, did a lot of this so much better.
I just want everybody to know who's voting right now that I'm going to feel really bad if I win. Because I'm not a competitive person. I'm terminally not competitive. So
that's true.
So
but sometimes, if you think Michael did the best, vote for him. If you think Paul did the best, vote for him. Or maybe you just vote based on whether you love the movie.
Just vote for Paul to make me feel better because I like Paul and I just honestly. I'm so not competitive.
All I know is either one of you is going to have to do really, really well to beat Tim's score. So,
well, no, none of us is going to beat Tim's score. That's just impossible.
Shree Theodore says, I've got an 80s American high school yearbook that is the Breakfast Club. So that's pretty cool.
Original Merman.
All right.
Mini comic Merman.
So, Michael, closing arguments.
My closing argument is simply that the Breakfast Club puts on a veneer of this is going to be a high school movie about kids from different social groups that finally understand one another and become friends and grow. That's kind of what the premise, the boilerplate statement of the movie is. But the actual facts of the matter from the movie itself, not through interpretation, but literally what happens is totally the opposite.
Paul.
And I'm going to say the movie is about holding a mirror to us. It's a movie that puts a mirror up against us so we can learn to be a little bit more accountable for our behavior socially. And it inspires conversations about our roles in society as well.
Do you see why you need to vote for Paul? I mean, he said that with a better accent. He said that with aplomb.
With a plume.
All right.
Yeah.
So go to the description part of the video that you are looking at on your screen, and next to the Breakfast Club, there is a link to a poll. Click on that and vote if you have not already done so. And now that it is 3:30, I am going to tally up the results.
Storm Shadow
Oh
says,
my God, it's
"Vote
a
for
tie.
me." Oh,
All right, so I'm making a field, no, not field promotion, whatever we're calling it, because I am on the hosting channel and it's a tie.
It doesn't matter because neither one of you beat Tim's score. So.
No, it's not about Tim's score.
It
I'm just
is
saying
about Tim's
between the two of us,
But, yeah.
I'm the main channel hosting this, and you have a better accent. I'm giving it to Paul from the 50-50 split. Paul wins. Paul wins.
Yeah, but Tim wins the panel. So Tim is going to be going on to compete in the trivia showdown, which will be on Sunday. So he is definitely going to be in the running for
Why are you
this.
sorry? That was a nice thing to say. Don't ever
amazing.
apologize for being nice.
I was apologizing for interrupting Melinda. Sorry again.
No, you're fine.
That's okay. The Dreamland people interrupt us all the time. I mean, bye.
Rude. Well, Paul, thank you so much for joining us. Tell the people where they can find you again.
You can find me on GI Joburg, and you can find GI Joburg on your favorite podcatcher or on YouTube, where we do fantastic play motion videos, the occasional review, and a lot of discussion and weird other things that have to do with GI Joe. It also gives us a great excuse as grown men to buy and play with toys. So please come check it out. If you are a grown human being who likes to play with toys, I'm sure you'll love it. So that's GI Joburg, GIJOBURG, Berg.
.com. Yeah. So yeah, thank you for joining us, Paul. And Michael, of course, you can find him here at RetroBlasting, where we are on every other Saturday doing live streams, and we're doing all kinds of stuff. And you'll see lots more of us over the next couple days. And I am actually coming up next with a heavy metal panel, an 80s metal panel. Bring everybody back on real quick.
Just to say bye.
Okay, I'm going to bring everybody back on. I got Sal and Dante, and you guys aren't over here, but they're back behind the camera. But just say goodbye, everybody, so that we can see this out. And
Bye, everybody.
Everybody, love your debates, guys. It was
See you on the
super
metal.
cool. I have
That's
a whole
right.
new appreciation for Star Trek 4 now. Thank you. So
bye, everybody.
cool, guys.